Pretty much since I've started flying Cinewhoops, I've been asked why I don't use 6-cell batteries for squirts, and to be honest, the reason that I don't is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've built 4S Cinewhoops since I got started with this platform, and I have not really seen a reason to change. However, enough people have asked, and I've started to get curious, especially about all of the kind of new and better 6S products that have come out on the market, that it's now time to try something new. So today I've brought out two relatively similar, identical-ish Cinewhoop builds. This one's on 6-cell, this one's on 4-cell, and we're going to test out the differences between the two and see whether or not switching to 6S adds that much value compared to what are potentially extra costs from having higher grade electronics and more expensive batteries. So the day is all about a shootout between 6S and 4S. In terms of the 6S squirt, I'll give you a little bit of a build overview of what I've put in here, because I think that this set of electronics is going to be one of the things that's going to help this thing stand out. First of all, we're using a Caddx Vista instead of the original DJI FPV Air unit. The Vista supports directly input up to 6S voltage. That being said, I'm using the iFlight Success, I don't know how to say it. I don't think anybody really does. Mini stack, and that actually happens to have a 10-volt output to the Caddx Vista anyway, so we could have used an original Air unit, but it fits better into the squirt. Then I'm using T-Motor 1507 T-mount props. I figured that we could save a little bit of extra weight from the bigger battery that we're going to be putting on here to make sure that this build is roughly the same weight as the 4S build once they're all up in the air with GoPros and batteries. And finally, obviously, the frame is the Shen Drones Squirt V2. Definitely my favorite Cinewhoop frame. This thing is my workhorse. I keep going back to it. So we've come to this awesome spot here in Indianapolis called Holiday Park, and we're going to use this as the place to shoot out the differences between 4S and 6S squirts.
Calm down before you stress up the groove.
So today's first flight will not be the maiden flight of the 6S squirt. I actually did one battery in my yard, didn't record the DVR just to try it out, and I was pretty impressed. I did not have a GoPro on there, so I don't know how it's going to fly with the extra weight, but it definitely seemed to have a little bit more pep, even on 2700 kV motors, which should be about the same amount of RPM target after you compare the 4S and 6S builds. So the first test that I want to do is just fly them back to back, 4S then 6S, and just kind of have a shootout, get a good overall feeling of how each flies.
Surprised at all, seen them rise and fall. Went up the mountain, it wasn't hard to climb at all. At the top, I found some relief. I finally got some peace. Carry on, but please don't mess up the mood. Yeah, I worked too hard for it. No, I need to beat it before you mess up the mood. Yeah, ooh, I worked too hard for it, and I need it, so please don't mess up the mood. Don't mess up the mood. Don't mess up the mood. Yeah, I work too hard for it. Yeah, don't mess up the mood.
Here we go, 6S. Definitely off the ground with less effort. If it's getting affected by the wind less, it's a negligible amount. It's still getting buffeted around pretty good. But it definitely feels a little smoother. I don't know, let's keep flying and see what happens. I feel like I'm more in control, I don't know. Maybe it's just because it's a fresher build. Like, honestly, my 4S squirt is probably like 2 years old now. No, it was just a nice moment of less breeze. Oh my gosh. Just trying to get shots here. And here we go for the gap. Downwind. Oh my gosh. Let's do this column run. So I think when there's no wind, it definitely is much smoother to fly, in my opinion so far. So like I'm really liking it by default on the 4S one, and maybe it's a difference of tune or something, but 4S one by default has like a little bit of just a little bit of not that smooth operating. This one, when there's no wind, it's just like it's on rails until I hit stuff. It's got a lot more punch out, so like I just bumped into a fence trying to fly between it. It was gonna flip over, but I punched out, and it managed to save it because it had a little bit more power available. So that definitely helped in that case. I always wonder what people think when they see you just sitting here with VR goggles on.
And some guy holding the camera in your face.
This is feeling real good. Legend. It's still got that degree of precision too. Like I feel like I can do, it's like Squirt Plus. Like I can do everything that I would do with a squirt, and then I can also give it a good punch and be able to, you know, get out of oh crap situations. So I'm really liking that, but just about out of battery here. 3 minutes and 40 seconds armed, which I think that's pretty good for my squirt battery life. But 330 is good, especially for that big of a battery. I mean, I'm running a 1300 milliamp 6 cell. It probably should be like 1100 or something like that, but cool. So the next question I want to answer is, can the 6S dive better than the 4S? Like one of the biggest problems that I've had with 4S is when you go into a dive, it gets that high I-turn wind up, it kind of just floats away from whatever it is you're diving. So we got some pretty tall trees over here, gonna just go up and try to dive down the side of it a few times with the 4S, show you what it looks like there, switch over to the 6S, see if it does it any better. Let's get to it. Thanks for the drone back. So this is the 6S drone. I just put a 4S battery on it to do the test. Then I crashed into the snow because it didn't have enough power. So I'm not a smart man.
Pro status!
Okay, yeah, that's a little more power. Here we go. Dive test. Send. Oh gosh. Actually, that was not as bad as I thought it was going to be, if I'm going to be really honest. I'm going to just dive off to the side of the tree, kind of.
There's people almost to where the front is.
Yeah, I'm just going up towards the statue.
On it.
Yep, there it gave up. Okay, so I'm not quite diving far enough, so I'm just going to do some open air stuff. Straight down. It starts to go. Look how far it's pushing forward. Oh, gosh! There's money in the bank. So now let's switch over to 6S and see if it can pull out of that dive a little bit better. And see if it still does the I-turn wind up. Because what's happening is as soon as I go down, it falls, and then it starts to push forward really bad. So it's not going straight down, up and down. It starts to go way out this way. And then eventually it starts to just twist because the yaw is saturating and it's trying to just add more thrust, and it just starts going like crazy. And then by the time you're trying to catch yourself at the bottom, you have no more power left because everything is fully saturated. So I want to try it with 6S because it has a little bit more power, maybe some more resolution to work with on throttle, who knows. Let's see if it can dive better. Okay, so here we go with 6S. All right, here's tree dive 1. Please make it. Whee! Oh gosh, that is really not that much better though, to be honest. Here we go. It might have been better. There we go. 3, 2, 1. That was it. Oh my gosh. It dove. That was awesome. I'm gonna do that one more time. That actually worked. I've never seen that work before. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Diving. Oop, got a little squirrely there. One more. 2, 1. Yes! What in the world? Bank. Okay. 6S dives better than 4S squirts. Definitively. I have no idea why. Like, I think it's a little bit heavier. I think there's just more power. So, like, it's not saturating the motors as bad. So you're having the ability for it to just, like, catch itself at the bottom and to not have that I-term wind up. It's just allowing it to go straight down, and it's able to fix itself without having to pull itself forward or backward. From what I can tell, I mean, I went up to probably 300 foot, nose in. I couldn't go all the way down on throttle. It would start to get a little squirrely, but if I kept it at like 15% throttle and just let it drop, I mean, it was locked in straight to the ground. That's a good sign. That's a really good sign, because that's something that could be really useful for squirt shots. Like, say you're in a building or you're filming, like, I don't know, say it's a hotel and there's like a 4-story auditorium and you want to go from one floor straight down to the next really quickly. In the past, at least with my squirts, it would get really funky towards the bottom, and Winston's laughing at funky squirts. You know, it made it impossible to get the shots that you needed. So having the ability to dive with the 6S squirt, combined now with a better battery life, seems like it's going to have a lot of value.
And less funky squirts.
And less funky squirts. All right, so the next thing I want to do is compare the weight of the two. So we actually brought our scale out here into the field using the Duncan cup to keep it up off the thing. I'm tearing it out. So we're even. Here's the 6S squirt by itself. We're at 445 grams with a GoPro, and then the 4S version, 433 grams. So this one, so the 4S version somehow is 20 grams lighter with a full-size air unit and a 20 by 20 stack. That's what this has too. So now we'll add the battery weights back in. Here's the 4S drone with a battery. It's now 591 grams. And the 6S with the battery, by default, was already heavier, even though I was trying to make it lighter, is 656.5. So it's almost 70 grams heavier on the 6L version. Now, I could probably build it to be lighter than this one, but at that point, what compromises are you making to be able to hit that weight? I'm not sure, but at the same time, it definitely has more power to be able to keep up with the other squirt. To prove that it has more power, let's do like a quick punch out test and see if we'll just kind of eyeball it and see how much it can do. So we're gonna do punch out tests for 6S, then 4S. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. That's actually not bad. Oh, you just get it back down here. Okay, now let's compare that to 4S. Okay, now here's 4S punch out. 3, 2, 1. I don't know which one was faster. It's hard to tell. 4S is not as fast as 6S for punch outs. Not that you really punch out that much with a squirt, but it tells you how much more power there is. 3, 2, 2, 1. I don't know which one was faster. Okay, so on the way to this spot, I went on Instagram, posted to my story, what's the difference, or what do you want to know about the difference between 4S and 6S? And we got a whole bunch of responses like, what? I can't go through all that many, but we're gonna try. Zach Hiley says, when to use either one. So my hope is to answer the question one for all, one way or the other, and I think right now I'm leaning towards 6S, so just don't use 4S anymore. Well, that sounds weird to say. Do you gain better resolution of power delivery from going split S dive to a hover? Yes, definitely. We tried a couple different hovers with 4S and with 6S, and it was much better with 6S. Arnie BSDF says flight time, I guess flight time, and the answer to that is it seemed like we were getting about 30 seconds more of flight time on the 6S drone. Yasuz Achilles says 6S has longer flight time, yes, but the lipos cost more than 4S. Yeah, so yeah, we looked at the cost of 4S and 6S, and it's a little bit more expensive to go 6S, but I think you get a little bit longer flight time and better performance. And to me, that's worth it. Victor De La Rosa says comparisons on weight, flight times, and recommended uses. It's definitely heavier to have the 6S version is what we've seen, but you have more power and more throttle resolution, and it costs a little bit more. And having a little bit extra weight seems to help a little bit with high wind situations. It's not been super windy today, but it's enough to notice that the heavier weight of the 6S quad handles the wind a little bit better. Bogner424 says, what's a good 6S tune? So I'm flying default tune on Betaflight 4.2 today. That's all I had time to do. I just put my own rates in and it's flying pretty stellar. So I'm seeing a lot of similar questions, just kind of scooting on through to find out if there's anything else. Gosner Bell, why do I even bother? Gosner Bellazis says, which one is more fluid / smooth? I would argue that the 6S one was a little bit more smooth and fluid because it just kind of had a little bit extra power. It was able to kind of handle the situation of wind, and even when there wasn't wind, it seemed to be flying just a little bit more smooth than the 4S was originally. Flight time difference for the same milliamp hour. So we tested both 4S and 6S at 1300 milliamp hours, and the 6S version had about 30 seconds more flight time in spite of the amount of weight that it had. Now this isn't necessarily apples to apples, one, because we didn't make the exact same flight, and two, because the watt hours of the 6S battery is a little bit more dense. So you're finding that the 6S probably has a little bit more capacity essentially in the first place. COVID! And then the final question that I'm going to go through here today is from Shreyas Prashanath. It says, what's the power gain with 6S compared to 4S on a practical level? Is 6S more snappy? I'm going to show you the punch-out comparison again in 3, 2, 1. I think that answers it. So thanks to everybody for submitting their comments on Instagram. It's super helpful to kind of know what you guys are thinking about the questions that we should be answering, especially when making comparisons like this. So please go follow me on Instagram and be sure to leave questions when I post them so that we know what you guys want to know about. So to kind of finally start wrapping things up, the 6S version of the Squirt, even though it weighs a little bit more, seemed to outperform the 4S version in a few different areas. The keys were, especially in flight time, it seemed to have a little bit higher duration, high performance. It was definitely faster in the punch out, which means that would definitely carry over into any other performance flying. It still maintained that throttle resolution that you need to be able to hit gaps, right? I was able to like fly through the trees and through the sculpture and all of these things that you need the Squirt to be able to do, but then you still had a little bit of extra power that helps you out in any kind of unfortunate situation with Squirts. Beyond that, footage all still looks amazing. The two compare for a bunch of different ways, and while this is a little bit more expensive, I think it's absolutely worth to start thinking about going to 6S for Squirts instead of just 4S. So after my bigoted last 3 years of refusing to switch to 6S, I think I'm finally going to make the transition and get everything in the air with 6L for a gig that I've got coming up in a couple weeks. All of the stuff that I have here on my Squirt, I purchased for myself. No one sent it to me. I chose these out of what I saw to be the best options available. All of the parts that I'm using are available in the links in the description below, and if you choose to purchase from them, it's a big help to our channel. It supports everything that we're doing, allows us to get out and make more content like this. If you're not interested in the parts, please consider signing up with Patreon or with YouTube memberships to just kind of become a Patreon of this channel. Again, huge help to be able to make more content like this. We appreciate everything that you guys do for us to be able to make more content for you. Thanks for watching, and stay flying.